Welcome to the Rustic Garden. Today I want to show you how to seed start kale and collards indoors. I have a couple of starts already going. Today is February 15th and you want to start your kale and your collards indoors about 4 to 6 weeks before they're ready to go outside. They are cool weather crops. They can take a freeze, they can take a frost, and actually here in Maryland Zone 7 I plant some in the later summer so that they overwinter through definitely fall and winter. They'll slow down, they'll stop growing, the leaves will drop down like that. As soon as the warm weather comes, which for kale and collards is 40-degree soil temperature, 50-degree days, they spring up extremely quickly, grow lots of tiny leaves, much more sweeter in the spring after winter than you might grow them in the summer. And they will flower. They're biennials, so the first year you get a lot of leaves. The second year you'll end up with great tasting flowers that you can pick before they bloom, or you can pick when they flower. They typically flower with tiny little yellow flowers, and if you catch them just right, you can taste the pollen and the sweetness in the flowers. Now, this is kale. This was planted on January 22nd, so it's been about 17 days, almost about 2 weeks worth of growth, and you can see what they look like after 2 weeks of growth. These were planted on January 10th, and this is almost 5 weeks worth of growth. So they're getting to that 6-week mark, and this is when they would really be ready to go into the ground. Kale and collards are very versatile vegetables, very nutritious. They're packed full of calcium. The leaves will get, huge, like this big at least. You can wrap them, you can wrap rice in them, you can wrap meats in them, you can then bake them, you can cut them into thin slices, put them in your salad, you can saute them, you can stew them, and just have boiled greens. They're a great vegetable to have in your garden. Let me talk to you a little bit about the planting. The seeds are small. You're going to put 2 or 3 seeds into each cell. You don't want to wait around for a plant to germinate, a seed to germinate that's not going to germinate. And you can see these have already been thinned. All these plants have been thinned out. They get thinned at about the 2-week stage. You pick the strongest plant, gently pull out the kale that you're not going to use. You only want 1 plant per cell. These plants get very large. You don't want them competing for space. And you can also see some didn't come up at all. So 2 or 3 seeds per cell. When you start when you pack your cells with starting mix, you're going to put the soil in, the starting mix in, and it's going to be very loose. Thumb pack it down. You always want a solid starting base for your plants or for your seeds. It helps with germination, and since the seed's not going to find its way and fall down to the bottom, it better helps wick water up from the bottom of the cell. Also, pre-moisten your starting mix. They come bone dry typically, and if you set a dry starting mix in a pan of water, it usually just floats. If you pre-moisten it, the water just wicks up very quickly. Once you thumb pack it down, you see that you're going to need more space. Add some more starting mix, and you end up with something like this that has a nice solid starting base for your plants. For the kale, again, and for the collards, 2 or 3 seeds, and you can see that they're very small, but they're easy to handle. And I tend to do the same thing. You're not going to be able to see the seeds on the video, but I always put one in the right corner, the left corner, and then just push it down a little more than 1/4 of an inch. And I would do that for the whole cell. And then once they're done, of course, a little bit of starting mix, and they're ready to go. Let me put these seeds back in. And this cell was pre-moistened. I also recommend don't pour water on the top. What happens is it will splash the soil around, it'll splash the seeds around, and if you have diseases, fungus, any kind of spores, you're going to splash the spores around. So it's just a better way to keep your plants healthy. I just put them into, the big black trays. I'll use this for the example, but just drop this in there, fill this up with water to about here. Whatever this absorbs in 20 minutes, you're good to go. Just dump out the excess water, and with some practice, you'll figure out how to put in, the right amount of water. But that will set your seeds up for germination. A couple of things to notice. These plants are under grow lights for about 14 hours, and they're still a little bit leggy. You can see that they're loose, and that's because this stem is really pushing the plant towards the light. And even with 14 hours of light And my bulbs stay about probably 2 or 3 inches above the germinating seeds. They still get a little bit leggy. That's okay. They just race towards the light, and kale grows really fast. And if you can see here, from here to here, that's the extra legginess. That's not so bad. It's really, really hard too. It'll become woody. When you transplant these, you're going to transplant it to about here, and this plant will stand up perfectly. All the leaves will start coming out, and you're good to go. This stalk is going to get really, really thick. So don't worry about a little bit of legginess. Here's the collards over here, and you can see that their leaf structure is a little bit different, and this is the wrinkled black kale is what they call it. It's also Lacinato, don't know how to pronounce it. But this is the black crinkled kale, and this is your standard Georgia collard greens, and these leaves will get huge, and you can see the difference. The taste is pretty much similar. But again, they can get a little bit leggy, and when you transplant them, you're going to transplant them, these are the first leaves, right up to about here, and let them go. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please check out my blog at www.therustedgarden.blogspot.com, and also check out my YouTube videos. Thanks.